Good morning everyone. My name is Sarah Doherty and I'm the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Hornbill. I would like to welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar where we'll be having a presentation on HR and FM feature reviews with Dave Hodgen, Product Owner, and Andy Gittos, Application Developer here at Hornbill. Just to inform you, Delegate Auto will be muted during the presentation to help facilitate flow and timekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the GoToMeeting question facility on the right-hand side of your screen. We will collate questions and answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you for the time to attend. I will now pass you over to David.
Thank you, Sarah. We're going to go through some of the features within the HR and FM service desks to give you an idea of, first of all, what's within those, but the main perspective of this overview, this webinar, is to give you some of the feeling about what kind of features we're looking to include within the ITSM application. The main concept is that the feature set within the ITSM application is going to increase, and that will mean that if there are HR or FM requirements, you'll be able to use those within the ITSM application. So this kind of replaces the approach before by having 3 different applications for customers to use. What this does is actually give you a reduced cost of ownership in terms of both the administration and the training aspects of your support work. You do benefit from a broader feature set within there. We'd be adding things into the main application we're providing. And it also means that whenever we bring out new features, you get the option to use those, as well as to benefit from the ongoing maintenance which we're putting into the ITSM application. So quite a few benefits coming through to you from that perspective. There are basically 2 general audiences we're aiming this webinar at, and the first one is those who are planning to use the ITSM. We're currently using the ITSM application. You may see things in here which you think, yes, that's a good idea, I'd like that within the ITSM application, and then give us some feedback towards the end so that we can review that and take that into account when we're working out when we can and what we can put into future releases. The second sort of group is those who are currently using or wanting to use an HR or an FM service desk, and how we can build those features into the ITSM application, which those features are, not just concentrating necessarily on the ones we present today. If there are other ones, please put those forward. Please give us the suggestions within the forums for that. And again, we bring that into consideration whenever we're working out what we can include within future releases of the ITSM. So basically 2 sort of audience sets for that perspective. I'm going to start with just outlining the various features which we'll cover. As I say, we'll pass on to my colleague Andy in a little while to go through the demo, to show you how the features actually work. But I'll give you an overview of what they are, some sort of scenarios in which they might be used within the system. First of all, we'll have a look at some from the HR service desk, and first one on the list is confidential requests. The scenario here could be that you've got a change request going through, for example, and until that's confirmed by the business, you want to keep that confidential. Only certain people can view and work with that. Obviously within the HR desk, this has got its own specific requirements where only again certain people should be able to view those and progress them, etc. So you're putting a bit of restriction on the visibility of the actual request. So we'll demonstrate that, show how that works. Again, just to give you an idea, some things may of course change. We put that into ITSM, but it's the main concept we want to get across at this stage. Next one on the list will be the 2 customers per request, and this will effectively be obviously the main customer going in, but it may be logged on behalf of somebody else. So you may have 2 people where one is doing the main communication with the service desk, but the other customer still needs to know what's happening with it to be able to see progress, for example, on that one. And there are a few scenarios you may have within the your IT environment. You may have people who are, if you like, IT service desk champions. They're not specifically members of the service desk, but they do take that pivotal role within possibly each department or different teams as the focal point. When someone comes to them and says, I've got an issue, they can raise that, they can handle the main communication with the desk, and still the other customer can get access to the details within that. We'll then have a look at the option to have both owned by and monitored by analysts against a request. So two things sort of spring to mind here. The first one is whenever you've got a new person coming onto the service desk team, and they're in, if you like, a learning phase, building up their experience with different things. So the main person might own the particular request, but the other person again's got that visibility from an analyst perspective to see what's happening, possibly put updates and start building up their knowledge and skill within that area. The other scenario could be if there's something which is fairly complex in nature and you need basically more people who are actively involved in managing that particular request. And again, there's arguably a learning aspect to that, but it may just be that something needs a lot more input, a lot more active input, so it's actually effectively being tracked by two particular analysts there. The topic of cost tracking will then be covered within the HR perspective, what functionality we have at present. And this is generally a fairly high-level aspect of cost. So if you've got, for example, a third party coming in, they may give you a general figure to say, right, to do a particular piece of work that will have a certain cost associated with it. And you can then record that against the particular request. You've got that information as you to do your reporting on, to help your future planning. Moving on to the facilities service desk, the first piece on here is planned maintenance, and most people from a facilities perspective obviously fairly clear with things like if you've got your air conditioning unit and needs certain ongoing maintenance. These devices have different schedules, whether they're monthly, whether they're every so many days, whether they're annual, different things that need to be done on a regular basis. And within the planned maintenance feature, there are aspects in there to do things like have it on every so many days to change that sort of frequency as needed. So quite a bit of flexibility from that perspective. There's also the option to specify a location or a space, and we'll come on to that topic in just a moment. But you can also specify a particular asset or configuration item. So you choose those different things. You can also activate and deactivate it very easily. And you can easily see things like the previous request that was raised for that. Again, what we're showing you will be, if you like, facilities focused. In other words, it will raise a particular task to go against that. There's potential in there to say that there's potentially a different call class that's going to come in that you're going to raise. There's also control over the SLA that's going against it as well. So a few things in there on the planned maintenance, but if you really think about things like scheduled requests, that's the main area to consider when looking at planned maintenance. One of the advantages of this particular feature is that it gives more people access to the whole list of particular scheduled events that you're putting into the system, whereas within the standard, from the platform perspective on scheduled events, they're basically viewable by the analyst who created those scheduled jobs, and that is just a distinction which means a bit more flexibility within the plant maintenance area. Within the locations, outer spaces, within even an IT perspective, obviously within an FM perspective, it's useful to know for some things a bit more granular detail about where things are being stored, and whether it's printers, whether it's services, etc. So there's more information being held in there, and Andy will show you the different forms, what you can hold against that, and you can come back and say whether that's something which is going to be of value to you. The next thing is a work order. So you've got somebody coming in to do a particular piece of work for you. You want to be able to give them a printout because they don't have logins, etc. to your system. Then a work order would be an option there to be able to just click a button and get the printout available from that, including all the relevant information from the request. With the time and materials usage, this is a more granular level than the cost tracking, which we mentioned before. So you can add things in about specific items. You can enter categories, assign those to different categories. Again, you can put things in to do with different suppliers as well. So those are things which are advantageous both from an IT and an FM perspective, and it gives you the option to come back to, for example, the services you deliver and get more details about exactly the cost of each particular service. So you can further refine your costing structure, even if it's just internal information, to know it generally costs X amount, we're actually not covering that, or we need to do something different to make that enabled. So again, it's that business value coming into the system and enabling your business to improve on different levels with the new features. So what I will do now is I'll hand over to Andy, who's going to take you through a little bit of a demonstration of the system. And once he's gone through that, I'll come back and take any particular questions. And again, there'll be encouragement to go onto the forums and put in particular enhancement requests on there and give us some feedback. So I'll hand over to Andy now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So first application I'm going to show you is the HR application. First of all, I've logged in as Mark Jones. As you can see, he's a system administrator in the system. And the first feature I'm going to show you is confidential requests. So first of all, if I just open up a regular case, you can see at the top here, there's an option to raise a confidential case. The idea behind these is basically to restrict the logging of viewing and updating to certain analysts. As you can see, it takes quite a lot of the details from the original case, but you can obviously add a few different things in. You can set a profile code. You can change the description and the details. And just log that as you would normally. You'll notice straight away that you can see that new confidential request that we raised in your watched calls list. Now you can get to it that way, or you can open up the original case. In the associated information you can see your confidential cases here. Right, so now I'm going to log out as a system administrator. Log back in the HR application, this time as a regular support analyst. So you can see I'm in the same group as the administrator, but this guy, Trevor James, is just a support analyst, and you can see that he cannot see that confidential case in the watch calls list like you could with the previous analyst. So the access to confidential cases is controlled with application rights, and these can be assigned to analysts or, like in this case, roles as normal, like you'd be used to in an IT context. I guess in an IT context, confidentiality could be applied to a change proposal or a change request, for which general visibility you'd want restricted until some kind of business communication takes place. So that was confidential requests. The next one I want to show you is 2 customers per request. So just going to open up one of these cases again. And as you can see, there's a requester and a bishop, that's one customer. There's also a subject, Helen Castle, another customer. Similar to what Dave already mentioned, in an IT context, you could, for example, have a new employee equipment request, which will come from a line manager, and that, with the 2 customers per request, that could include the line manager and the new starter, so they could both be kept up to date with the progress of the request. And that's it really for the 2 customers per request. Another feature that I can show you in this case is owned by and monitored by analysts. Basically just so you can have 2 analysts on the same request. You see them you see them here, in the owned by section you've got Mark Jones, and the monitored by section you've got Jane Harris. In an IT context, you could have a second analyst associated with a request to provide an inexperienced analyst with just so they could observe an inexperienced analyst in a sort of training program. That would be one use for this in an IT context. Another feature which we can show you in this case is cost tracking. So you see over towards the right hand side we've got a costs tab with various costs added for various things, and here we've got legal costs, travel costs, that kind of thing. But basically any requirement where you needed an outside resource, you could add them in here. You can quite easily add them, remove them as well. Just for example, having the total cost calculated here. And that's costs. We actually take costs a step further, cost tracking a step further in FM. So let me just log out of HR now. So now we're logged in to the facilities application. And first we'll just open up the request. This one. So similar to the cost tracking in HR, but a more detailed version of it basically. You've got time and materials usage. So this time and materials tab in the middle has time and material entries, and you can easily add and remove them in here just like in the HR application. And each time entry, for example, can have a contractor associated to it. And let me show you the contractor. You have the contractor name, and each contractor can have one or several rates associated with them. And then this is calculated along with the time. You enter in the time entry to give you your total time cost. And you've got similar details in materials, where you basically have that amount of information that you can add in about materials. Okay, so that's time and material usage. The next feature in facilities desk that I want to show you is planned maintenance activities. So this feature was developed within facilities desk to ensure that maintenance and other regular tasks were performed at specific intervals to comply with warranty specifications and things like that. So in this menu here, you can see that you can again add and remove your planned maintenance activities, and you can see we've got one here for annual security alarm check. There's quite a lot of details you can fill in here for your activity. Obviously you've got a start date and a frequency. You can do the usual things like define the SLA and the support group for the request that will be raised for this planned maintenance. You can also associate an asset ID. In IT context we call that configuration item, but sure you know you can just associate this to various entities. Another bit of information you can see on here is the last call reference. So that's basically the last request that was raised for this planned maintenance. So we can have a look at that particular one. It's a task that's raised in this particular case, and it was 1293. So this is basically the task that would be your activity for the planned maintenance, and you see the various details in there. So that was it for planned maintenance activities. And the next feature I want to show you is locations and spaces. The idea here is to associate a physical location or space to your various entities. So you can see for this planned maintenance activity we've got a location section and we've got the reception area or location that this is associated to. I can just look at the location properties. You can see that there's quite a few details you can add for location, including an image, and you can see other requests that are associated with this physical location. In an IT application, you could link configuration items, departments, and more to physical locations or spaces. It could be useful in larger organizations where you've got a lot of different locations, just to sort of filter out your calls in a different way. And yeah, that's it for planned maintenance. Sorry, that's it for locations and spaces. So the last feature I want to show you is work orders. This feature basically enables an analyst to generate a printout of request details. So if I go back to my incidents, open one up, I can see there's a print worksheet button here. I click that. What it's basically done is create a Word document. So you can open up down here, shows all the details of that request, and this could be given to a third party if you need that kind of thing. And there'll also be a few options in here for you to change the layout and the details of what's displayed. So yeah, that's work orders. And that was the last feature I was going to show you. So hopefully you can let us know which ones you like and which ones you maybe like to see in the next version of the ITSM. And for now, I'll pass you back to Dave. Thanks very much.
That's very useful, Andy. Thank you very much. So just a quick recap on some of those. We'll just bring the slide back up again. So we've got the list here. Again, the feature with this is really thinking about what sort of aspects, what sort of new enhancements we put into the ITSM application. So it enables it to be used both within the ITSM, expand within that, but also to cater for the facility side of things. So there are a few on this list which we've sort of put fairly high up our list in terms of what we think we should be putting in. And as Andy mentioned, we'd like to get some feedback from you in terms of what things you would think would be of value within the application if we expand that. And if there are any other things that you can think of that would be beneficial as well, again, please give us the feedback on that. I'll show you the links in a moment to the forums for those entries. But the ones which we have considered so far will be, first of all, the confidential requests. And this is, you're obviously going through, you've got different processes going on, whether it's things which are just in the idea phase, you want to go through within ITSM, you've got a change proposal. It may need to be just monitored by a few people before you get to the stage of saying to making this more visible within the desk to other people. There may be other things where for one particular server you may have certain security information going on in one particular team, and they may be predominantly working within raising the confidential requests. The whole concept of where these are raised from is something we need to look at, work out how that's going to happen. It may not be raised off the back of another incident. It may be just raised as a general, this is a confidential request. The alternative is that, for example, if you're on a particular request, at whatever type of request, there may be an option just to make this a confidential request. So it's a very high level in terms of what we're looking at within how we're going to maintain the confidentiality piece in that. So those are some things to consider on that particular entry. The next one will be things like 2 customers per request. And I know this has come mentioned here from the HR desk, but I still think there are various scenarios where you've got, for example, somebody on a manning, if you like, a service desk. You've got maybe different people who are the key IT support people in different parts who don't actually work on the service desk, but their role is to assist their colleagues in IT-related stuff and more or less pass those on to the service desk. So they're logging in as a customer, so they'd be maybe the main customer, but they also need to know it's raised on behalf of somebody else. And that's where people may just walk up to them and say, trying to get onto the Wi-Fi, I've just got a new phone, can you get me in quickly? It's just the passcode for it. They may want to raise that, they may want to know how many of these are going through, and it's then just getting that information into the system so you know there are actually two people related to this. There are probably various other scenarios as well, but those are sorts of things where you've got two people, two customers actually on a particular request. The third one, which we have on our list, is the planned maintenance. And as Andy went through with that, there are quite a few extra things you put in terms of whether you're linking the location space into it, whether you're linking the asset through to it. The schedule of those is an awful lot more flexible. We've got within the planned maintenance, you have the standard facility of scheduled calls. So that sort of thing, whether it mostly, obviously FM is a specific case where it will be used, but also within the IT world, there's certain things that need to happen on a regular basis. And those things can be put in here that you can make sure they happen at that particular time. And there's obviously options in there to see, as Andy pointed out, which for the previous one was raised so you can make sure it's happening. You've got a lot more flexibility with just altering that frequency to a new frequency or disabling or deactivating it for a period of time until you need to bring it back online. There's a lot more control over that, and it also gets us around the scenario where no matter who creates the planned maintenance entry, whoever else is rights to that table in the database, a lot of other analysts can actually go in and view that and maintain that within the system. So that's another advantage within that. So there are quite a few pieces on the planned maintenance which could be leveraged within an IT perspective. So a few things we may add to that. The things currently will raise a task. That could be altered so it's raising different types of requests. If you've got different things, whether you want a general incident raised, not too likely to be a service request or too many other requests, but incident or task are fairly likely to be the main ones that are getting raised there. But there's scope there to extend how that would work. Obviously other things in there in terms of how we view that information and present it, etc., may be enhanced as well. So those were the main ones that we have on our list, and just wanted to put those forward as something which we're considering and for inclusion in a future ITSM release. But the main point of this is really to get your feedback on the system, on the particular things which you may have seen, and to get your questions from that. Any particular questions, we can take those now. Okay, so one question has come into this, been presented in terms of when we're actually looking to put in some of these features. So the ones I've mentioned that are very high up our list, we're working on a timescale to put those in probably around Q2 or Q3 of this particular year, around that, a release around that particular time. And that will start to let you see what sort of things are going in to be available for yourselves to look at. The other thing is, if you've got any other things which come back, we'll take that feedback, we'll work out whether there's some things that are actually going to be higher up the list, some things which you are far keener to have within the ITSM to expand that, either for an IT perspective or to make it useful for an HR or FM desk, and we can take that into account. So the view at this point, it's not sort of cast in stone, but the view at this point is the three we're looking at to put those in during around the centre point of the year. But as I say, if you've got any other feedback on that, then other things you want, we can take that into account to have a look at. So another query has come in to do with the costs of the particular different costs associated with the adding these features in, whether they're going to be require additional uplift within the license, etc. From that perspective. The usual route with the applications is that there's a very standard cost based on the number of linked to the number of analysts. few other pieces as well with self-service or mailboxes, what have you. But that particular approach, as far as I'm aware, is going to be maintained. And over the years, we've obviously added an awful lot of features to the application. There's no lift within the cost to cater for those. So the same costs are fairly likely to maintain. It's not more on the technical side of things, the development side. So if you do have any queries on specific costs, that's probably going through to the your relationship manager. And by all means, have a conversation with them about what your general needs are, and they can come back and advise you if there is any need to alter a particular cost that you're looking at. So normally they will be within the standard cost for the application, so there shouldn't be any alteration in the approach we're adopting in this particular this set of features. Something else which was mentioned is to do with the ability to turn on or turn off the different features. Depending on how they're implemented, so for example, if a completely new call class or call type was introduced, then that's something which we probably need to be able to turn on or turn off. And maybe that's just a general HR query coming through, so we may be able to enable or disable that. So there's some things there which are of value to enable or disable depending on your particular scenario. The similar thing would apply if you're having a more predominantly FM or HR focused desk. Obviously you might have some things within the ITSM side of things, the IT perspective they want to disable. So there's some features in there which will need to put in some capability to say this is available, this is not, depending on who's logged in. That's probably going to be down to either the rights we've got within the application right, which really does that role of controlling what access different analysts have to different parts of the system, but there may well be other parts we need to put in to enable a higher level configuration layer for those particular pieces. So there are things we need to consider as part of implementing this, but those considerations will really take shape whenever we're looking at certain pieces which will specifically need to be turned on and turned off again. Okay, so those are the main questions that have come through at this point. As I said, if there are any other questions, you can have a chat with the your relationship manager, and I also let you know there are various areas for the forms, etc., for you to look at and links through. So if you have a look on these, if you go to the forms as well, there's an enhancement location in there where you can put in the different requests, and doing that will enable other people within the customer base to have a look at those, to take their views, to express their views and their ideas about how things could be enhanced for their particular scenarios. And that gives us great feedback then, so we can build things into the application. It's going to give you guys an awful lot more value from the system. Okay, so that basically wraps up what we're presenting today. Thank you for taking part in this, and as I say, we welcome any feedback you've got, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, David and Annie, for taking us through that presentation. I hope everyone found it useful. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to ask or contact your relationship manager. Finally, thank you for your time today. Bye.